الحمد لله الذي علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان والصلاة والسلام على خير الأنام نبينا وسيدنا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. صلوا على رسول الله. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق الخاتم لما سبق ناصر الحق بالحق والهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله حق قدره ومقداره العظيم. اللهم إنا نسألك علما نافعا ورزقا طيبا وعملا صالحا متقبلا يا رب العالمين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما يا رب العالمين وفقها في الدين. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to shower immense mercy upon Al-Imam An-Nawawi rahmatullahi alayh. Say Ameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Covering the lesson in Tibyan. This is a very important chapter because it's practical to us as Muslims. I mean, every chapter of Imam An-Nawawi's Tibyan is practical for us. But if you remember a recent lesson that we had covered, I just recently came across a new qaid through one of my teachers in regards to a tafa'ul that a person would have behind the Imam. You know, when you recite, when the Imam is reciting about Jannah, can you say in the middle of your salah, Allahumma inna nas'aluka al-Jannah? When the Imam or when you are reciting ayat about nar, can you say Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min an-nar? Can you do this whilst you're reciting? And so we discussed this already. Hanafis, you cannot unless it's nafil salah, qiyamul layl, you're by yourself, you know, and then you're reading about Jannah, you get your heart is so impacted, you say Allahumma inni as'aluka al-Jannah, no problem, okay? Nafil. But you don't do this in salah amma. Am I going to start doing that in salah while I'm leading you guys? You're going to say, what is Shaykh reading, Quran, or is he reading Torah, or is he reading this one or that? People already get confused of Zirat al-Mustaqim. Now if I do this, you guys are going to take the shoes and throw me out. But the Malikiyah, what? In regards to this, in regards to tafa'ul fi salah, they say it's good and allowed for the ma'moom. What does this mean? Let's say that Dr. Awad, he's praying by himself. Can he do it? Malikiyah, no. But if he's praying as the Imam, can he do it? No. But if he's praying behind the Imam, do you listen or do you recite? You listen. Who said recite? No. Behind the Imam, you listen. So if you're listening and you're listening to the ayat and then the Imam reads something and then you read a dua quietly to yourself, is this allowed? And the Malikiyah, yes. So this is where it's very useful because I hear a lot of people when I'm reciting, they might say a dua very quietly to themselves, or they'll say bala or whatever the ayat, they're having tafa'ul bil ayat. Then as a person behind the Imam, as a ma'moom, then this is fine according to the Malikiyah. I thought this was a very beautiful qaid, and it's actually very practical because as an Imam, how are you going to do dua and read Quran at the same time? Even when you're praying by yourself, how are you going to do it? But when you're ma'moom, you're only listening. So if you're only listening and then you make the dua quietly to yourself, then this is perfectly fine. Imam An-Nawawi in the chapter we're supposed to cover today, he goes into al-qira'ah bit-tankis. Okay, are you supposed to recite the Quran in tartib, in order, or are you supposed to recite in mixed match? In tartib, everyone knows this, okay? The order of the ayat in the surahs themselves, are they by Allah Azza wa Jal or are they ijtihad? By Allah Azza wa Jal, of course. Can anyone say that the Sahaba, they came and they said, Qul hu Allahu ahad first, Allahu samad second? Did they do this or Allah sent it like this? Allah Azza wa Jal sent it. Like the order of Surah Al-Baqarah, is it divinely sent or is it ijtihad? 100% is from Allah Azza wa Jal. Tawqifi, divinely ordained by Allah Azza wa Jal, as it was sent to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and as he taught it. Bas. What about the order of the Quran in surahs? Fatiha, then Baqarah, then Ali Imran. Is this from Allah or is this scholarly interpretation and ijtihad of Sahaba, I'm saying? From Allah Azza wa Jal. So a person should adhere to it. You know, when it comes to discovering the time, if it's set by Allah Azza wa Jal, does that mean that there's a wisdom behind it? Yes or no? Yes. Is there wisdom behind the order of the surahs of the Quran? Yes. And so that's why you find scholars of the past, you know, some of them discuss this in their books. Suyuti, you know, Asrar fi Tartib Surah al-Quran. It's translated, multiple translations, and it's a good translation too. It's very clear. And then recent scholars, Dr. Fadil As-Samirai, he has a book as well. And honestly, no matter, you know, what very little has been written about this, if a person were to sit and really think deeply of each surah and how it's connected to the next one and read them over and over and think about the themes, think about the tafsir and think about the words used, you'll find so many connections. And seriously speaking, this project, if someone were to undertake it, it would become one of the best things of this era. If someone were to undertake it and go through the whole Quran and really deeply dive and see the connections not in the ayat but in surahs themselves, each single point, then each surah connection could really turn out to be a thesis and a master's thesis by itself. You know, when I was going over Surah Al-Insan, I told you all that I was going to discuss how it's connected to Surah Al-Qiyamah. Unfortunately, I didn't get to because long story. But I came across a PhD thesis, an entire thesis that connects, that shows you the connections between Surah Al-Qiyamah and Surah Al-Insan. What are the connections? The words used, the themes used, the questions that are posed in Surah Al-Qiyamah that are answered in Surah Al-Insan. An entire PhD thesis on how many surahs? 2 surahs, or 3, because he connects Mursalat as well. Insan in between, Mursalat in front, and Qiyamah before. Imagine if someone did this with the whole Quran, how long would the book become? Volumes. Has anyone done it? Not yet. So inshallah, I'm thinking maybe I'll do one specific dars just about Qiyamah and Insan. And Shaykh Ali Hani, you know Shaykh Ali Hani, Hafidhullah, he did a lecture for Surah Yusuf and Hud, or Surah Yunus and Hud. That's also an extensive lecture that he gave on the topic of connection between 2 surahs. A whole dars, just 2 surahs. And I can give a whole dars on just Qiyamah and Insan. Imagine if someone did this for the whole Quran, just to show you, what do we know of the Quran? Nothing. وَفَوْقَ كُلِّ ذِي عِلْمٍ عَلِيمٍ. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us more beneficial knowledge, Ya Rabb. The Quran is an amazing book. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we can use our time and dedicate it to learning Kalamullah Azza wa Jal. So, we're not going to go into that. I've already discussed. Can you recite in tankees of ayat? Can you recite صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين مالك يوم الدين الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله. Can you do this? No. But can you test hufaz like this? They do that. Sometimes they do that. Have you ever seen those computer hufaz? In the subcontinent, you will find some hufaz, they know the Quran like they know their names. If I tell you to spell my name, I can spell it for you. If you're asking me backwards, maybe I'll make a mistake. But those hufaz, how strong their hifz is, they could read the whole Quran to you backwards. It just shows you. I can read Fatiha backwards because I read it 17 times a day. If I read the whole Quran like that 17 times a day, maybe I would be able to recite the Quran backwards. But for us, we struggle reading only forward. We struggle even reading forward. May Allah forgive us. Say Ameen. They read it backward. How much time do you think they dedicate to Quran? So as a test, yes. But should a person start to do it and make it as a habit? No. But also, I will say that those computer hufaz, I don't think this is a good time spent for Quran. Why? If you can read it forward, you can read it forward. إيش الفائدة تحفظ القرآن من خلف? They literally memorize the Quran forward and then they go and memorize it backwards so that they can become computer hufaz. You don't need to do all of that. If that effort was spent learning Arabic, if that effort was spent learning the science of the Quran, this would be much more productive. But who are we to comment about people that are spending hours reading the Quran and we ourselves barely make time for half an hour? May Allah forgive us. That's all I'll say. So, can you recite the Quran backwards? No. We just said no. We cannot recite it backwards. But if someone were to be tested, this ayah, what's before it? Adi. This is just the test. What about, it's like you're teaching children Quran. When you teach them Quran, you're going to teach them, sometimes you start from قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ, then you go falaq, then you go, why are you going in this order? The Quran was sent in this order? The Quran is in this order, in this structure? No, but why do you do that for children? Because the short surahs are easy to memorize. So if you work your way backwards, it's kind of developing them. You go from 3-line surahs, 2-line surahs, to 4 lines, to half page, to 1 page, to 2 pages, to 3 pages. You see the Quran, if you start backwards, the way I memorized the Quran was backwards. Backwards. You start from Surah An-Nas until the end of the juz'. And then we wouldn't start from the beginning of the juz' even. We would start from the end of the juz' and work our way backwards. Can you imagine? Yeah, so that's how we do in the subcontinent. That's how I did memorization of the Quran. So in memorization and for ta'aleem, lid-darura, no problem. But for you and me to come and start reading the Quran backwards, هذا ما يناسب. Can I come in Salat al-Isha, for example, and lead for you, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ, and then the second rak'ah, I go, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَوْفُوا بِالْعُقُودِ, I go to Surah Al-Ma'idah. Can I do this? It's disliked, thank you. Makruh, it's disliked. Is it haram? No. So it's not haram. So if a person doesn't, be like, Shaykh, أنت أخطأت وأنت, you did a big mistake. No. It's shay basit. Sometimes people even forget. They go back and forward. Adi. But not to take it as a habit. Go in the order of the Quran. Go in the order of the Quran. So today the issue that we're going to discuss is reciting from the mushaf or from memory. And this is very important for us because there's an issue here that many people make mistakes in, and because of their salah might not be valid. Their salah might not be valid. Okay, we'll get to that issue. Imam al-Nawawi rahmatullahi alayhi, say rahmatullahi alayhi or rahimahullah, he said reciting the Quran from the mushaf, reading, looking, is better than reciting from memory, since looking in the mushaf is a kind of worship one seeks, for it combines recitation and looking. What does this mean? When you recite the Quran, do you get reward? Yes. When you look at the Quran, do you get reward? Yes. So 1 + 1 = 2. So if you recite and you're looking, then you get double the reward. And some ulama even mentioned that the more of your senses that you involve, your hearing, even your touch, every sense. I don't know about taste. Maybe you're reading some ayat of Jannah, you're reading ayat about rumman and you start eating rumman. I don't know, anybody tried this before? I don't think so. But the more senses you involve, even, what do they do for children? Beta, put your finger on the Quran. Why? Because it helps with the learning process. This is for anything. The more of your senses that you involve in the learning process, the easier it is to learn. Why do people listen to audiobooks? Some people, this is a method that I've tried myself. Listen to a book, an audiobook, and then read. Don't just listen to it and go on a hike and go on a walk and you're looking at the trees and you forget even what's going on in chapter 1 and you're on chapter 5. No, I'm talking about you're vividly listening and you're actively looking at the same time. I do this for some tafasir that are recorded, and you absorb way more. Why? Because now you're reading and you're listening. So the more senses that you involve, the more you absorb. So imagine the Quran. You're reading loud enough that you can hear. When you listen to something, does the voice and the sound have an impact on the heart? Yes or no?
Yes.
Does it have an impact on the learning process? Yes or no?
Yes.
When children, sometimes they read Quran. I used to do this as a kid. I used to try to memorize closing like this. How are you memorizing? You have to recite out loud. As-sawt lahu athar. Yes or no? So listening to yourself, putting your finger, reading, all of this, the more you involve, inshallah, the more reward you get. But does that mean that the one who's only looking, he's not getting reward? He's also getting reward. What's the minimum of one harf in Quran? 10 hasanat. Does it mean only Allah is giving 10? That's the minimum. Then it gets multiplied, yes or no?
Yes.
So the one who's reading quietly, he gets reward. The one who's reading out loud, does he get more reward? More reward. The one who's looking in the mushaf, more reward? More reward. The one who's reciting like, mashallah, very beautifully, putting effort in it, more reward? More reward. See? So, yudaf. Allah gives more and more, multiplies as to the effort and the intention that we have put in. So, reciting from the mushaf, is it more rewarding than to just recite it from our memory? Yes, because there is ajr in just looking at the Quran. But that does not mean that huffaz of Quran, that people who memorize the Quran should be complacent. They say, looking is rewarding, then I'm just going to keep looking. No, then when are you going to memorize? For you, the maslaha and what's better for you is actually to read from your memory. Is to read from your memory. Because if you don't read from your memory, what's going to happen, sana'ullah? You're going to forget. So that's not a good thing, obviously, right? One important thing, though, that I wanted to discuss, and that is about. So let's continue forward. Then we'll go back to it. Okay. So he says, this is what some of our Shafi'i companions, Imam al-Nawawi, he's a Shafi'i, rahimahullah, Al-Qadi al-Husayn, Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, Imam al-Ghazali, Hujjatul Islam. Some of his fiqh works. Okay, I'll mention them by name: Wasit, Basit, and Wajiz. Wasit, Basit, and Wajiz. These are 3 titles of famous works of Imam al-Ghazali in the Shafi'i madhab. And everyone who comes after Imam al-Ghazali, what are they doing? They're building upon Imam al-Ghazali. And you know where he got these titles of these books from? From Imam al-Wahidi. Imam al-Wahidi, he has 3 tafsirs: Wasit, Basit, and Wajiz. Wasit, Basit, and Wajiz. Some are shorter, some are longer, and some are more extensive. Wasit, Basit, and Wajiz. Imam al-Wahidi, he wrote this as tafasir. Imam al-Ghazali was so inspired by him that he did that for fiqh. Imam al-Wahidi, that great mufassir, he used to spend so much of his time studying Arabic. Nahu, sarf, balagha, this, all of the different sciences. Until his shaykh told him, خلاص أنت يكفيك يعني what you studied in لغة يكفيك يعني خلاص you studied too much Arabic. Go to Imam al-Tha'labi. Imam al-Tha'labi, I have, his tafsir is huge. Imam al-Tha'labi, go study tafsir with him now. It's enough. And you know what Imam al-Wahidi said to his teacher? He told his sheikh that the reason why I'm studying lugha, the reason why I'm studying Arabic is in order to understand the Quran. How much of the Quran and tafsir and interpretation is dependent upon lugha? 100%. Can you understand Quran without Arabic? So the more you know Arabic, the more you know Quran. Simple as that. So that was the great Imam al-Wahidi. But going back to the issue that pertains to all of us, and that is recitation. A lot of people, they'll make the mistake. They'll be in salah and they don't read. Lips are closed. The mouth is not moving. Dhuhr, Asr. Are you reading out loud or reading quietly? Quietly. Does that mean you read like this? In your head?
No.
What does qira'ah mean? What does it entail? You have to move your lips. Even if it doesn't make a sound, unless you know. Some people, they'll do salah like this. Is this recitation?
No.
Is that salah then accepted?
You're just thinking.
Huh? Thinking. Is that recitation of Quran? Does that fulfill the condition of salah? No. So that's why we must move our lips when reciting in salah. Salatul Dhuhr, Salatul Asr. A lot of people, you look at them when they're praying by themselves. When you're behind the Imam, Qira'atul Imam is enough for you. Huh? If he takes care of it. But if you're praying by yourself, can you read Dhuhr like this? No. Is the salah accepted? How many people might make this mistake? A lot of people make this mistake. A lot of people make this mistake. So make sure that when you're reading the Quran, it's done by tahrik al-shafatayn. You're moving your lips, you're moving the tongue, even if the voice comes out or it doesn't come out, but as long as you are actually actively doing the recitation itself, the qira'ah itself, okay? So just thinking about the ayat is not enough. Just thinking about the ayat is not enough. Yeah, I just read all of Baqarah, mashallah. No, you have to go. You have to move your lips. You have to actually you have to go and hit the makharij and whatnot, okay? Whether there's a voice heard or not. Imam al-Ghazali in al-Ihya. What is Ihya? Ihya Ulum al-Din. The revival of the Islamic sciences, the great work of Imam al-Ghazali, where he went into seclusion and he found himself, his heart was troubled, and he wrote this beautiful work that's translated all in English, and it's taught even by Sheikh Isam in ICN 12 South. A very important work. He cites that many of the companions, radiallahu anhum, say radiallahu anhum, recited from the Mus'haf, and they found it reprehensible that a single day would pass without looking in the Mus'haf. There shouldn't be a single day except that your eyes gaze upon the Mus'haf. I'm telling you, as a hafiz, there were times where I would not look at the Quran because it's all in your hifz. You're reciting from your memory, and even when you're looking at the Mus'haf, you're passively looking. You're like this. You're like barely looking at it. You're like this. Yeah, I know. No, but there's a different type of feeling when you look at it letter by letter, sign by sign, ayah by ayah, line by line. There's a different type of impact that it hits the heart. When you look at it like that, you look at it very extensively, and you look at it, it has a different feeling to the heart. So Ibn Abi Dawud, he relates accounts from many of the righteous forebears, the Salaf, that they recited from the Mus'haf, and I myself do not see any disagreement therein. Imam an-Nawawi, he's saying this. So should a person go a day by without looking in the Mus'haf? No, every day you should look in the Mus'haf. Even if you memorize the surah, just because Qul a'udhu bi rabbin nas, mashallah, you know it like you know your name. You know Qul a'udhu bi rabbin nas, right? Do you think you're ever going to forget it? Inshallah, no. Unless some accident happens, may Allah protect all of us.
Ameen.
You're going to forget Qul a'udhu bi rabbin nas? It doesn't mean you don't look at it. Still look at it. There's ajr in it. There's still ajr in it. Okay? A lot of people, they don't even look at Fatiha. Look at Fatiha. There's ajr in it. It may be said that this differs. So this is ala hasab. According to different people. Reciting from the Mus'haf is the choice of one who finds khushu', veneration, and tadabbur, and pondering the Quran equally attainable, whether reading from it, from the Mus'haf, or from memory. Yet reciting from memory is preferable for someone whose tadabbur and khushu' is not complete when reading, and thus his khushu' is better when he's reading, when he's doing it from memory. So this is a good opinion. It is clear that the words and actions of the righteous, the Salaf, confirm to these details. Khulasa, for Ammat al-Muslimin, okay, for the general person, reading from the Quran is better than just to do it from the memory. You'll get double the reward. But Hufaz, they should what? They should not take it as a habit, because then they're going to forget the Quran. Okay? But then they should still spend some time looking at even the verses that they've previously memorized, because there's a way to it. And also it solidifies the photographic memory as well. The more you look at it, the more you will remember where it is on the ayat. Okay? Let's say someone though, his memory is strong and he's going to be praying, or he's going to be leading, or he's going to be in his own ibadah, and he wants to read a surah that he has memorized. If his memory is weak, do you think his khushu' is going to be there? If his memory is weak? No, because every single 2 ayahs he's going to be like, what's next? طه ما أنزلنا عليك القرآن. Let me go to you. Khalas, you forgot the ayah. But if a person's memory is like a rock, his memory is so solid, actually looking will distract him. Looking will distract him. And I've experienced this myself. When a surah is very, very strong, when you read it from memory, it flows easily. But when you start reading, you start to pay attention to more details, and you get lost in the details rather than getting lost in the ayat. So it depends case by case. Everyone knows themselves better. بَلِ الْإِنسَانُ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ بَصِيرِهِ Imam Kisai. بَلِ الْإِنسَانُ عَلى نَفْسِهِ بَصِيرِهِ. Okay? We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to be people of Quran. That because Allah has gifted us with our gaze, that we use it to gaze upon His book, Azza wa Jal. That He gave us hearing, that we use it to hear the Quran. That He gave us lips and He gave us the ability to speak, that we use that to recite the Quran. That we use our senses, all of our senses, to solidify our relationship with the book of Allah Azza wa Jal. اللهم إنا نسألك بكل حرف من القرآن حلاوة وبكل كلمة كرامة وبكل آية سعادة وبكل سورة سلامة وبكل جزء جزاء وصلى اللهم على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Any questions? 100%. The Quran looking at the phone is 100% enough. But I will tell you this. When you have the pages in front of you and you smell the pages and you see the Quran on the left and the right and you see it and you're flipping it, there's a different type of attachment that you will build when it's with pages and it's in front of you. You know a problem that I have now? Because I memorized the 13-line Mus'haf, the Desi Quran. And then later when I went to Medina, my teachers forced me to switch to the 15 one. So I re-memorized the Quran, re-memorized it page by page by page in the 15-line Mus'haf again. And then my photographic memory was not as strong. It was not as solid as the first time. Because what you do in your childhood, you're looking at it 90, like all day long, it's not going to be as strong. And now I don't have the time to go and constantly have a book Mus'haf in front of me. Sometimes I'm in the car, sometimes I'm in the office, sometimes I'm here, sometimes I'm there. So a lot of times I'm on my phone. And so I'll read from my phone. But then does the phone tell you which is on the left, which is on the right? You don't know left, right, what's up, down, you don't know what's going on. And so a lot of times now, like for Surah Luqman, I remembered one of the pages was on the right side, but then when I looked at the Mus'haf, it was on the left. I said, A'udhu billahi min shaitanir rajim. That's the problem with the phone. But when you have the actual physical copy, there's dhawq to it. That's why Quran Beheld, I love Quran Beheld, but I don't like that each page is always on the right, the translation is on the left, because I'm getting confused now. Which is on the left, which is on the right. And that really helps in the memory. When I was re-memorizing the Quran, I was re-memorizing it with which page was on the left, on the right. The first page starts with إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. The next page starts with مَثَلُهُم. The third page starts with وَبَشِّرِ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. The fourth page starts with this. The fifth page starts with this. هَذَا الَّذِي يُقَوِّي الْحِفْظ. This is the shughul of the hafiz. He knows where the page starts. He knows where the page ends. He knows what's on the left page, what's on the right page, or the right page and what's the left page. He knows all of this. I used to memorize what page would start and where it would end. Why? Because it helps and strengthens the hifz of the hafiz. But the phone, it doesn't give you that. So I would encourage that a person use the Quran, the physical page copy, when they're reciting and memorizing. But let's say you're traveling, you're elsewhere, and you put the phone on. ما في إشكال. خير وبركة is better than going on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, كل هذا ضياع الوقت that a lot of people spend their time doing. All of this, if you replaced it with Quran, how high would we reach?
But how about even for the fourth prayer? Are you allowed to read?
Yes, for fard?
Yeah.
No, for Salat al-Fard, there are some scholars that give allowance even for fard salah, okay? But the safer opinion is that for a person, for fard salah, he limits himself to his memory, and then for nafal, for qiyam al-layl, for tahajjud, for whatever it may be, then it's totally permissible for a person to look and gaze upon the mushaf. So that's why in Ramadan you'll frequently see a lot of people holding Qur'ans, holding, it's adi, hada shay, completely jaiz. But it shouldn't be to the point where a person is getting distracted. I saw one person, there's a picture where he was standing next to the outlet, his phone is charging, and he's in Taraweeh. I think that's a little too much, But other than that, it should be fine, inshallah. Barakallahu fikum.
You told
If you allow little bit,
Yeah, wait. Yes.
you told you can recite Surah Fatiha backwards.
No, I said, no, you cannot. No, I said, I'm able to do so because my hifz for Fatiha is strong.
Able to do that?
Yeah, easily. Backwards, I mean the ayat, not completely the letters. That's mustahil. Tankis al-huruf, I'd have to think a lot for that. Yeah. You had a question?
no, not question. I
Yeah.
wanted to say that like if you allow little bit, people will go like if you allow cell phone, right?
Yeah.
Then people using the charger as well, right?
Yeah, no, so that's what I'm saying. No, if it's permissible, it's permissible. I said just someone should take, just don't overdo it. Don't overdo it.
In some remote places, we don't find hafiz.
Yeah.
So in Taraweeh, I saw them, they read from the.
عادي كله جائز even حفاظ do it عادي. Yeah. Yeah. Bismillah.
What I have noticed people while offering the prayer in first rakah, sometimes they recite Surah Nas, for example,
Ji.
right? And in the second rakah, they usually offer say Surah Quraysh, for example. It's backward.
Yeah.
So what is your opinion about that? Like,
Not my opinion, but they see it should be avoided.
it should be.
It should be avoided. Better Quraysh and then Surah An-Nas. Quraysh and then Surah An-Nas. But a person shouldn't intentfully. Sometimes, let's say, I don't know, I had a busy meeting, I don't even know where I'm at, what I'm doing. I start my salah, the surah that comes to mind is Surah An-Nas. Okay? But I'm not even following the khatma, and then the second rak'ah, I decide to read Quraysh. Is it sinful? It's not sinful. It's not sinful. But it shouldn't be habitually done. Follow the tartib. Alhamdulillah. Barakallahu fikum. حياكم الله.
Leading any prayer, and you tell him